It is a long-standing tradition for the NAACP to be actively involved in the political process. I count it a blessing to be here with you tonight. This is the fourth political action forum for the Clarksville NAACP rank during this 2014 political campaign period. Tonight we have with us candidates running for the Congressional 7th District. We have to our left Mr. Ladner, Mr. Leonard D. Ladner, and next to him we have Mr. Credo, and on my right I have Mr. Daniel Cramer. We'd like to thank them for being out here with us tonight. Before we start asking questions, we're going to just ask the candidates to give us about a 2-minute introduction of themselves, and where they come from, why they want to do this, and stuff. Well, basically, that's a 2-minute presentation of themselves. So at this time, we're going to start on my left with Mr. Ladner. If he would just give us a 2 minutes at the podium. You can do it at the podium, fine.
Let me thank Mr. Garland and the NAACP for inviting me. I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning. I actually own and operate a truck for a living. I'm actually working for a living. And my standpoint on the issues is very simple. We have been offered more and more and more government programs as solutions to problems created by the government. My take on this is very simple. If elected to the House of Representatives, I'm going to do one thing only. And this is a promise. This is in blood. I'm going to look at these bills that I'm going to be asked to vote on. I'm going to ask one question only. If this bill passes, or if this funding bill passes, will it increase the size of the government? Will it increase the cost of the government? Will it extend the reach or the power of the government? If so, we vote no. We got too much government as is. Now, on the other side of the coin, I will not touch any of the entitlement or welfare programs. They need to stay where they're at. There are too many people dependent on them. EPA, OSHA, ATF, and all this nonsense needs to be cut back. Other than that, I live in Homerville, Tennessee. I'm from New York City. Let's see, I own and operate a truck. What motivated me to run for public office? In driving to Clarksville from here in Tennessee, where I had to deliver this afternoon, you see all these political signs, all these politicians, all these people spending money on signs. For what? To give us more government? We've got too much government as is, and if it keeps going the way we're going, more government, it's going to be total government, totalitarian government, and nobody wants dictatorship. Nobody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. I want to thank the NAACP, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I'm proud and honored to be here. My name is Credo. I'm Muslim. I'm a war veteran, wounded warrior from Fort Campbell, retiree from the 101st. I'm an associate minister, assistant pastor at Fifth Ward Mission Baptist Church. I've been in this community for almost 11 years now. Been very active in the community. I'm married. We have 5 children. My wife Kashika and our 5 children. We love this community. We've been here for a while. I'm running for Congress because for the past 12 years in county, we have not been represented in this community, in this district, and in this state, in Washington, D.C. So I believe our district needs a fresh start in a new direction. A fresh start in a new direction where our public school is more funded, where we stop beating up on our teachers, where we put curriculum back into the classroom. A fresh start in a new direction where our senior citizens have their benefit protected. A fresh start in a new direction where our veterans and military service members have their pay and benefit protected as well. Those are not handout. They are well-earned and deserved benefit. That's why I'm running for Congress. Also, I want my children's future to be be protected. Education is the new world currency, and we cannot take the backseat on that one. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Dan Cramer. I'm running for Congress for Tennessee's 7th Congressional District. I'm a 26-year veteran in the United States Army, and while in the Army, there's a general rule that you don't volunteer for things, but generally you don't raise your hand to bring up problems unless you yourself has a solution. The unit's full of people who want to complain, but if you don't bring the solution, nobody really has any use for you. And 9 times out of 10, when you bring the solution, that usually means you get volunteered for the job in the meantime. The last 4 or 5 years I was in the military, I saw the government being run in such a way that I felt my service was not being really justified by the behavior of the people running the country. So we saw the country's credit rating being downgraded. We saw the government shutdown. We've seen, since then, new things to get me upset. We've seen attacks on veterans' benefits to balance budgets. We've seen huge numbers of prosecutions of banks from the financial crisis, but nobody going to jail, and even the latest one where the large bank admits criminal activity, but refuses to give us the names of all the people who are hiding their taxes in Switzerland. And it's this kind of abuse that's coming from Washington that's run by congresspeople who have been bought by the corporations and by the special interest groups. And that's why I'm running. It's time for a change from that. We need people in Congress who represent the district that they come from. And my name is Dan Cramer. We're looking for a Washington that's going to work for working Americans. Thank you.
Again, thank each one of you for being obedient and sticking to the time. I think this thing will work. But anyway, we're going to start off question and answer sessions, and each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer the question that's presented to you. We're going to start on our right with Mr. Cramer, so that we can, and after I read the question, I will push the time. And the first question is, what do you feel about politicians engaging or interfering with labor management issues in the private sector?
Okay, well, this is a timely question. We've seen this going on in the 4th District in the Chattanooga automobile plant, where the VW plant allowed UAW to come in and try and run an election, a fair election. And strangely enough, the people in the party who always tout the free market and the liberties and the freedom for people to do what they want, the Senate, two Republican senators and a Republican governor actively interfered with that operation to defeat a union vote. So they betrayed their own principles of freedom for the workers, the opportunity for them to decide their own fates, all in the name of basically keeping wages low. And they're trying to keep Tennessee as a favorable place for business, but they're doing it on the expense and on the backs of working people who basically work without union protections and now work at 30% lower than similar plants in other parts of the country. So if you're asking where does labor fit in the grand scheme of checks and balances, there are only a couple checks on basically the power of capital, which is conglomerated in the corporation. The corporations have their place, they have their job, they're part of our economy, they're part of our culture, they're a necessary part of our society. But the only way, you have to have a check on any sort of power. So the power of that capital, the check on that is the organization of labor, so that people aren't just commodities, where people actually matter, where the treatment of the worker is what's important, not just the end result. And the other check on capital is the government. The government is the only place that has the power to put a check on the corporation's activities. So if you want to think about, Mr. Leonard talked about, Lenny talked about OSHA. Well, you really want to reduce the government's opportunity to make sure you have a safe workplace? I mean, how safe do you think a steel mill would be if you asked Bethlehem Steel to write their safety standards? So that's my general idea of how labor, government, and the corporation fit together.
Mr. Friedel, do you need the question? Yes. Okay. The question is, what do you feel about politicians engaging in or interfering with labor management issues in the private sector?
Well, President Garland, when it comes to labor, whether we are in the private sector or public sector, it all matters. when it comes to labor, we automatically think about our union. We think about our labor group that protect the workers. Let me remind us all that without those groups that protect the workers, without a union, we won't have a vacation pay, no sick leave, maternity leave, weekends, child labor laws. We won't have those. We have those today because of the union. And when we take the unions out, what is like is slavery. Basically, your boss tells you to come to work whenever he feels, and if you can't comply, you don't eat. That's unacceptable. Tennessee has just lost great jobs. It's in Illinois right now because our governor and the Republican legislature have voted just to shut the unions down. Families have lost meals. Children will lose their benefit as education, financial, health care, because those jobs have been taken out. It is unacceptable. That's why Tennessee needs a fresh start in a new direction. A fresh start in a new direction where our workers have a guarantee that their jobs are protected. A fresh start in a new direction where everyone have there's fairness across the board, that we all have job safety. We cannot play with people's lives. When we play politics, people die. When we play politics, people lose their home. When we play politics, people lose their health care. When we play politics, people lose their vehicles. It's unacceptable. So I strongly support the unions. I believe we need them in our lives because they're supposed to be a checks and balance in our government. And they are doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Mr. Levy.
Basically, I'm not pro-union or anti-union. This is a right-to-work state, and I think the state needs to deal with the workers and the unions as far as job safety. I love the story. I read up on a guy by the name of Clint Gold. He was one of the founders of the United Steelworkers Union. He was a good guy. Clint Gold and the steelworkers negotiated directly with US Steel. No OSHA, no nothing. This is what we need. This is how to make the job safer. And I think the people on the line, the people in the unions, need to deal with management directly. The only thing that the government needs to do is be an impartial referee. If you take a side, either for labor or against labor, you get yourself in trouble. Okay? So my position is, labor and management need to talk, and they need to do it without me being in the room. As far as politicians getting involved in a labor negotiation, they need to get out. Period.
Thank you very much. Our next question, we're going to start with the candidate Frida, and we're going to. The question is, what is going to be similar to the first one, but it says, what is your view of increasing the minimum wage because a fair day's paid for a fair day's work is definitely needed. Wages for the last 30 years have been flat, or at best, in some instances, has declined. Several states have already raised the minimum wage. Would you be in support of raising the minimum wage in Tennessee or as a nation?
Thank you, Mr. Garland. People, we are in 2014. A gallon of milk costs way more than it cost in 1980. It costs way more to buy a loaf of bread than it cost in 1980, 1990. When our cost of living increases, it is logical and reasonable for us to increase our wages as well. Anyone asking for the raise of the minimum wage is not insane. I strongly support the raise of the minimum wage. We are in a nation right now where people's light bill is over $100, $150. For someone making $7.25 an hour, it is hard. especially when you have children. I have 5, they eat. I can tell you that. They eat. So I think it's reasonable and logical for us to raise our minimum wage. And if those companies cannot have compassion on the hard-working men and women in this country, then we have a problem. Today, we have families that are working 2, 3 jobs just to make both ends meet. That's unacceptable. For me, it is unacceptable when you work at Walmart and you cannot afford to go to Walmart to shop. It's unacceptable that you work at Quality Inn and you can't go in there with your family for a weekend to spend a good time. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for someone to work at Opera Mill, Land, and can't even afford to take their children out there to have a good time. It's unacceptable. That's why Tennessee needs a fresh start in a new direction. A fresh start in a new direction where there is fairness across the table, where the workers are paid their equal wage to the job they have provided. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ladd?
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons that wages have gone down and prices have gone up is because of something called NAFTA. It was signed by Democratic President Bill Clinton and shoved through a Democratic Congress by a Tom Foley's not with us anymore. NAFTA took jobs out of the United States, put them in Mexico, and sent product back in. We need to get out of these trade agreements, each and every one of them. And yeah, I'm talking about protectionism. You want to raise wages? You go back to the way it was before NAFTA. The other reason that this gentleman was saying the price of milk and the price of bread and everything went up is because of inflation. The government is printing more money to pay its bills because of its increased size, cost, reach, and power. When you print more money, you have more money in the money supply. Therefore, prices go up. Okay? Minimum wage. I remember working for $1.65 an hour when I was a kid in 1969. I had a great time. I didn't have much expenses, but I saved money. What happened? It was a lot more than $1.65 an hour for my employer. I probably, with that truck, make under minimum wage, but I continue to do it. Why? I don't know, but I love it. The problem is not the wage. The problem is inflation. The problem is the government printing more money. And the problem is giving all of the jobs to the other countries so that we can be domesticated. And if you can ask me where I'm at the minimum wage, how do you pay an employee $15 an hour if all he produces is $5? I mean, I run businesses before, and I can't pay somebody more he produces. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
No, I'm good. Thanks. Okay, so the minimum wage has become a big issue this year, as well it should be. At the same time that the minimum wage has basically remained completely unchanged in just pure dollar amount. As an example, a McDonald's hamburger has gone up 30% in price. So if the workers' wages haven't changed at all, and the burger's price has gone up 30%, where did the money go? Well, we know where it went. It went into corporate profits. The minimum wage, the low minimum wage that most of the GOP's handlers lobby very hard for, are basically corporate welfare. So your average Walmart, the 3 we have in Clarksville, $900,000 per store in government benefits to the employees who work there, to make food stamps, heating bill benefits, WIC, all the different welfare programs for people who aren't making enough to survive on the job they have. Well, if Walmart's not paying its workers enough to survive, and the government and the taxpayers are picking up the check, that's basically the taxpayer paying Walmart's labor costs. And this is corporate welfare. This is the welfare that needs to be gotten rid of. So nobody I've talked to, or never ever mentioned, can say the minimum wage is acceptable at the level it's at. And I'd go one step further. What's even more criminal even is the minimum wage for tipped workers. So your average tipped worker only has to be paid $2.50 an hour if they get tips. And that's being abused horribly. So for instance, if you go to a restaurant, they will take the cooks and say, well, you're not an hourly wage, you're a tipped worker now, because even though you never interact with the customer, even though we're going to share tips with you, or split tips. Now you're a tipped worker, we can pay $5 an hour instead of $7 an hour. So So the low minimum wage and the super low minimum wage for tip workers, it drives down incomes over the entire economy, and that money is money that those people would immediately spend and put back in the economy. So your small business owners, and I can understand it's a definite concern. If I only have 2 employees and I'm paying them $7 an hour, how can I afford $15 an hour? Well, usually those businesses rely on lots of people coming in and making small purchases and having more customers with twice as much money in their pocket, and the long run's going to be better.
Okay, we're saying to all that.
We have another candidate.
Was the from the...
No, he's in the Senate.
No, they're Senate.
No, he's running for Congress.
You work for Congress or the Senate?
United States Senate.
There's only one left, I think, too.
Jacob Brooks.
Hopefully he'll be back again. But the next question we're going to start with Mr. Langford and go to Mr. Cramer and Mr. Caruso. Today's statistics estimate that women make 77 cents to $1 as it relates to men wages. This is not a Republican or a Democratic or independent issue. This is a family issue. How would you propose to bridge that gap?
It's a tough question. I look at what my wife produces, and she does not get paid what she's worth, but anyway. You know, everybody wants to do something with legislation. Hey, I'm a congressman, I'm going to wave my magic wand. And when you wave your magic wand, you set up a situation where people can add things to your good intentions. There are a lot of people who want to get things done, and they want to write bills and put things through, and they find out when the bill goes to a vote that what they wanted to do is not what the bill is going to do. So I can't see doing this through legislation. I think women need to be paid more. I think if a woman does the same job as a man, she gets equal pay. But to do it through legislation, that's just giving us more government. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so this feeds back into the last 2 questions very nicely. So, what do we do about the wage gap for women? Well, we have bills that have been submitted, the Lilly Ledbetter Act and then the following on Equal Pay Act, which the incumbent that all 3 of us are running against voted against, saying that women don't want equal pay in the workplace, which was kind of surprising to me because I haven't met a woman yet who said that other than her. But all this feeds back to the same thing. So if you find out that 70% of your minimum wage workers are women, then it's not hard to see how failing the minimum wage to keep pace is causing a problem in a wage gap with women. If you see that the problems with if you have no redress, if your employer is not paying more because you're a woman or paying you less because you're a woman, if you have no redress because there's no law against it, then of course he's going to get away with it. So it goes back to the thing, where's the check on the power of capital in the corporation? It comes from the government. So although Mr. Ladder may not like extra laws, and we all know that watching the law being written and making sausage are 2 things you don't want to see happen, yes, bills come out with things you may not want in them, but ultimately the government is our only protection against the employer who just says, well, I'm not paying nothing and like me. So it's a check and a balance system, and the government has a role. Teddy Roosevelt said it. The government is the check on capitalism. In the 1700s, then capitalism is the check on divine monarchy. We don't have divine monarchy anymore. The only check on the power of the capital is our government and through legislation.
No. I believe in fairness. I strongly believe in fairness. What we can do about women being paid less than men is already on the table. It just needs to be voted after. We have the Fair Pay Act, the Little Better Act, like Mr. Cramer just mentioned a minute ago. But here's the thing. Let me give you an example of the new CEO of GM. She comes in and is making way less than her predecessor that was a man. That's not fairness. When a woman makes 77 cents on the dollar at the same job as a man, that is not fairness. I don't agree with that at all, and I believe that women should be paid the same wage for the same job performed as a man. When those women go home, they have other things they do when they get home. Take care of their family, take care of their children, take care of their husband. When the husband is watching football, it's time that we start acknowledging the women in our society. So I'm running for Congress to be your voice, to carry your voice, and to make sure that we have fairness across the table. We need a fresh start, and we need that in a new direction, where we give value to our women who have done so much for our society. The 2 war we have been involved in to help others, we were able to do those because the women have stood up. They stood up and helped in the assembly line, in the manufacturing, production line. They have done those things. We cannot discount the women in our community, in our society, in our nation, in our district. That is unfair. We have to be fair to everyone, regardless of race, gender, or whatever they are. We have to be fair. Thank you.
The next question, we're going to start with Mr. Cramer here. And the question is, what do you plan to do to attract more business to employ more citizens in Tennessee?
All right, well, this is definitely one of the things that's been lacking for a long time from our Congress. Ever since the economic crisis, we sort of decided to be on a path to reach. We're going to cut government spending, cut investment in our own infrastructure and industry, and hope that those cuts magically turn into raising wages and new jobs. We're $1 trillion behind on roads, bridges, and civil engineering infrastructure, not new projects, just maintaining the things we have. We also need the power grid needs to be upgraded. So when the government gets back into the business of doing what it's supposed to be doing, which is protecting the investments we have in our infrastructure, then those jobs come back into the districts, right into the local districts. So if we're fixing bridges in Tennessee, if we're paving roads in Montgomery County, then we hire people locally. They can't be outsourced to Bangladesh. We can't build the road there and ship it here at a lower price. So by cutting infrastructure spending and this sort of austerity and this current climate of we can't spend anything, it's lowering our jobs on those projects immediately. And then the follow-on. You can't attract businesses to a community when there's no good roads for the trucks to get in and out with the goods. You can't expect a company to relocate if there's no hospital in your area. In the western part of the district where Medicaid expansion has left this huge gap, there are small hospitals that have already started closing. You can't attract a new factory into your community, into your county, if there's no hospital, because workers won't come there. And again, infrastructure, so power grid, data, like Chattanooga has a city-owned high-speed fiber optic network for internet. If that kind of project is shipped out to other communities, then more and more people can actually work remotely. Medical facilities can actually talk to doctors remotely. You don't have to have specialists there. And all those infrastructure things make your counties or your district more attractive to businesses. When businesses come in, tax revenues go up, etc. And you get a spiral going up instead of the one we are in going in.
No. To attract business in our community, we have to make the community a place where the businesses are welcome. I was at a meeting yesterday with Clarksville with members of the Red Cross. Clarksville is doing great things, but that's just one portion of our district. Here's what I'll say as your congressman. Anyone that's taking jobs out of our district, we hit them with the tax bill. Anyone that's stealing our jobs away, we hit them heavy. Those bringing tax and bringing jobs, those are the ones that deserve subsidies and tax breaks. Those are the ones giving back in the community. We also have to look at our infrastructure. Let me just give you one. Fort Campbell Boulevard. We call it Fort Campbell. It's 41 alternate. All the way to Tennessee, Kentucky state line. This is a federal highway. We can fix this infrastructure, bringing jobs back to the community. This is a violation of Title VI, which is proportionate distribution of federal dollars for public use. We don't have sidewalks. You see a woman riding on a scooter in a gutters. This has the highest fatality than any other road in Clarksville. And that's the federal highway. We have to make sure that we want to fix things. We fix things that are important to our community. Our roads, our schools, hospital. Like Mr. Cramer just said, yeah, there's a hospital that are closing. This ties us back into health care. We say we need to expand Medicaid in order for us to make sure that our community is growing. So we need to make sure we revise our tax code and bring jobs back here and invite them.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb. Ladies and gentlemen, to bring jobs back to the United States, we have to get out of these trade agreements. And right now, Congress is in the process of selling us out with the Strategic Partnership and Planning Agreement and some kind of Trans-European Agreement. These agreements not only take jobs away, they take away our sovereignty. Because the whole idea of these agreements, we need to harmonize our laws to their laws. We need to be a good little international citizen. I say no. Get out of these agreements, cut off the money to manage GATT, NAFTA, and all these things. Now, the federal government cannot create jobs except government jobs. However, what the states can do and the counties can do is to provide an atmosphere that's conducive for people with capital to come in, clear land, build factories. And that's the only way it's going to happen. It's going to happen through a free market. It is not going to happen by hitting people with tax increases. Somebody has to pay the subsidies. I'm overtaxed as is. Thank you very much.
We have one more question, and this one will start off with Mr. Lucifer. Why should I vote for you for the U.S. House of Representatives for the state of Tennessee?
Number one is the person we have there right now is not doing a great job. For 12 years, she hasn't done much. She has neglected the people of the 7th District of Tennessee. She has voted against everything that will benefit this community, this district, and this state. She voted against giving the residents of this district health care. 300,000 people in Tennessee are uninsured. She has voted to block education benefit. 330,000 people in Tennessee need to go to college. That's unacceptable. She has voted to take away veteran benefit, military benefit. This is a community of military families. I'm retired. I'm on that age of 62. Right now, anyone on that age of 62 that is retired loses 1% of their pay every year. When she was asked why, her answer was, I quote in the Lift Chronicle, "We will fix it at the next session." It shouldn't have been touched in the first place. The men and women that serve this country deserve better. And I'm one of them, and I stand for them. Our education system needs to be improved. We need to put more money toward public education and stop treating our children like commodities on Wall Street. That's why I'm running. We are facing so many issues right now in Tennessee. Yes, I'm a Democrat, but I'm much more than a Democrat. I am an American citizen. The American dream needs and has to be kept alive. We can keep that alive with a fresh start in Tennessee and in a new direction. That means we treat everybody with fairness and we treat everyone like we want to be treated. We send people to Congress that will represent us, not the big corporation and themselves. My name is Credo Amusumi. We're going to a fresh start in a new direction. Credo for Congress.com. Vote for Credo. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you one reason to vote for me, and that's very simple. I'm going to look at these bills, I'm going to ask one question. Does that bill increase the size, the cost, extend the reach power of government? If it does, I'm voting no. I don't care if that bill's on the floor of Congress, in the committee, in the subcommittee, or the caucus. We got too much government. It's getting worse and worse and worse. All right? If you want more government, you don't have to do anything. And by the way, if you think government is the answer to your problems, look at all the government we have now, and we are in worse shape than we were in 30 years ago. We have less money, our money buys less, things cost more, that's inflation, I went through that. And as a nation, we are poor. We need less government, less taxes, less government reach into our lives, less government employees. So if you want more government, do nothing. If you want less government, that's how I will represent this district. Latin for Congress, thank you very much.
All right. Why should you vote for Dan Cramer? Why will Dan Cramer do the job to the 7th District that hasn't been done for the last 10 years? All right, well, I'm going to tell you a little secret. This is a race against an incumbent. So, of course, although my message is what's important, some of the campaign is going to have to focus on some of her shortcomings. This is a woman who, I saw it on a YouTube video last night, somebody put up for the Bill Maher thing. She believes that her district includes cities such as Nashville, Laverne, Fayetteville, and Springfield. She cites these as examples of people she represents. Well, none of these cities are in the district, so she doesn't even remember, she doesn't even know where her district is any longer. But that's, again, this isn't why I'm running. I'm running because Washington, America, is supposed to be working so that for working Americans. Working Americans should be the engine that drives our society, should be the thing that keeps our culture and our way of life going. And that's not the way it is right now. We have, the whole, who pays more, the secretary or the CEO in taxes? I mean, those disparities show us that the working Americans are not being taken care of, are not being looked after by the corporate power. And again, the government's the check on that corporate power. You can't trust the corporation to do it itself because all they're in the job for is to make money, which is their job, but that's their job. So again, why me? 26-year veteran of the military. After that, you become institutionalized, and values like when a congressman gets convicted of cocaine possession, he says he's going to stay till the bitter end. He'll have to drag him out by his feet. When General Petraeus gets caught in infidelity, he resigns because he understands the buck stops with him. This is the difference in the military ethos, where people take responsibility for what they're going to do, what they have done, and that's what I bring to Congress, and that's why I do represent the 7th District.
We thank each of you for your time, for your coming out, and we're going to give each of you 1 minute to, as a closing statement, to say whatever you need to say to the people that are here. Again, 1 minute. We're going to start with Mr. Russo.
I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Thank the NAACP, President Garland, thank you for putting this together. Let's remember what we vote for, why we vote. We vote because we want a better life for ourselves and for our children. I want everybody here to remember that when you get in that booth to vote, you pick someone that feels your pain. I hear this saying, it's said many times, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Credo and Musubi care about the people. That's why I'm running. I'm the same guy in the suit, I'm the same guy that will drop my suit, fold my sleeve, and help around. I put my hand to the plow. I want to make sure that everyone is treated fairly. I want to make sure that the citizen here know that the government work for them and not them for the government. That's why I'm running for Congress, and I need your vote and your support. And when I'm elected, I'll make sure that your voice counts. The decision I will make will come from you, and we all want to work together to choose the solution to our problem. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for coming out. It's been a pleasure. Mr. Garland, thanks for having me. In November, you're going to have a choice. You're going to have a choice between an incumbent Republican who votes no on the bills and votes to fund them, which increases the size, of course, the reach power government. I like these two guys personally, but you're going to have a choice of a Democrat who is going to look for more legislation, more government interference, and basically increasing the size and cost of reaching power government. If you want less government, if you want more liberty, if you want your constitutional rights restored, if you want to get out of the United Nations, vote for Lenin.com. It's the only way it's going to be. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, last word is kind of a luxury. I appreciate you guys getting the straw raw that way. But, my name's Dan Cramer. I'm running for Congress. If you want less government, well, less government's fine as long as it's smart less government. If you want less government, just tell me what you want to get rid of. Do you want to get rid of your roads? Do you want to get rid of your police? Do you want to get rid of your military? We can get rid of all that stuff. But I don't think, as a nation, that's really where we want to head. What we want is a smart government. We want to know that our tax dollars that we give to the government are spent in a reasonable way and not wasted. That's what I'm going to bring to it. Make America work for working Americans. My name is Dan Cramer, running for Congress, Tennessee 7th District. Thank you.
Let's give each other a little